Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen. I'm reporting live from my orchid-filled cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law, because the orchids are my favorite flower. In fact, when I got the copy of Carol's book, I go, what's this? What's this? I was so excited because I thought, orchids, you know, it's a beautiful cover, and I've already got a little teaser about your next book. So we have tonight, and it is a Dutch name. It's Carol van de Hende.
Yes, that is perfectly pronounced. In fact, every member of the family pronounces it differently. So we're willing to accept anything. It's
Well,
really very funny.
what is the correct pronunciation?
Well, I probably can't do it totally justice. My father-in-law is from Holland and he pronounces it the proper way, like van den Hende, but I can't quite do it properly. My husband pronounces it van den Hende to try to Americanize it and make it a little easier. And his brother, to try to Americanize and make it even easier, pronounces it van den Hende. So I say anything goes, and what you said sounded perfectly fine to me.
Wow. Well, I like to get the author's names correct. So I guess I've got three choices. So thank you for being here tonight. We're very excited about having this book as a bonus book club selection for the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys Book Club. It's a fascinating story. But before we get into the book, I want to talk a little bit about you, Carol. I have never seen a book. I put a banner up this morning on my page because you have so many awards for this book. And then you've got the little Pulpwood Queen sticker. I just thought I've got to put this up there because, I mean, that is amazing in itself. So tell us a little bit about you and your family, and then tell us a little backstory on this book.
I love it. What a great place to start. And thank you for being all dressed up in orchids. You look absolutely stunning and gorgeous in the background.
You should see how it is in the back. Don't look.
It looks really beautiful on camera, I'll tell you.
Okay.
So thanks for asking about me. I feel that I wear multiple hats in life, which is probably true for everyone on the call here. I know certainly, Kathy, when I see your art and everything you do for authors, there's just, you know, and the hairdressing, there's so much in your life as well. And this is how I feel about my life. It's full of amazing, wonderful things. And I think the three main hats I have are one, I work full time at Mars Incorporated. I've had a career there in marketing and strategy. I currently sit on our digital technologies leadership team responsible for governance of our digital transformation, and have absolutely loved my career there in the US and in China, which may come back in when we chat a little more. And then my second hat is at home. You'd asked about my family. So I am married. We're actually going to have our 25-year anniversary this year, our big milestone. And we have twins. Our boys are 18 years old, so freshmen in college, that age. And that is incredible to me because it feels like it went by in a blink of an eye. We're a very culturally melded family. I'm ancestrally Chinese, even though I was born and raised in New Jersey. And then my husband was born in the States, but raised in Holland. It feels very European as well as American. And so that's why the kids have grandparents in the US, they have grandparents in Holland, we have family all over the world, a very culturally diverse family, which is really fun.
I love it. Think of all the great places you get to go.
Exactly. Yeah, we know people in so many countries, which is fun.
Now you've been blogging this week, and you had a link to a story about something that is very topical right now, as we're trying to become. I mean, the Pulpwood Queens have always been very diverse. We've picked international reads from the get-go. You know, I've always been fascinated by other cultures, other peoples, and I love to travel. But now everything it's a hot button topic. And you touched on something that was really, I think, needed to be explained about how you were raised in New Jersey and you come from Chinese heritage. So you thought, well, when I go to China, I'll just fit right in there because I am of Chinese heritage. And you got a real awakening. And I think this happens no matter what type of blended family you are. If you, you know, I did an ancestry.com and I was shocked because I thought I was a Scot Irish. I'm only 19% Murphy. Can you imagine? I'm only 19%. I'm 3% Norwegian, but I'm predominantly from the Wales, Russia, Germany, Prussia. I was got what? I had no idea, but I have grandparents that were German. So we all come from this big melting pot. So tell us a little bit about that for people who haven't read the article yet. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, thanks so much for reading that. That piece was definitely a piece from the heart that I wrote from my very personal experiences. And it's called Too Chinese for America and Too American for China. And this was such a big shock to me, So first I start out sharing that my family is originally from Shanghai, China,
Right.
that when the communists took over, both sides of my family had to flee. My mother's side of the family fled to Taiwan before coming to the US. My father's side of the family fled to Hong Kong before coming to the US. And then they met here and had me. So I was born in the US, always felt very American. I mean, this is the home I know, this is the culture I know, this is the place I've grown up. But had that experience in school, and of course, this is some decades ago, in which being different was not looked upon as a good thing, and was really such a shame. And I think I end on quite a hopeful note because I do feel like my kids who are now 18 have had a different experience. I think that minds are much more open to celebrating the diversity, which is wonderful. But I think the specific story that you're referring to, Kathy, I absolutely adore. And I put it in Goodbye Orchid. It was based on my own experience. This experience was when I was working for Mars, I had the opportunity to take an international assignment. So they offered me 2 years to live in Beijing. I was running our chocolate gifting business, which is our box chocolate business. Absolutely adored the professional side of it. But also personally, it was incredibly meaningful for me because although I'm ancestrally Chinese, I had never been to China until Mars sent me there. And what an opportunity to be able to see essentially what's my home country. And, as an adult, and everything was new to me. So, for a few things, first of all, it's incredibly humbling because I was illiterate. With the Chinese characters, those are pictograms. You basically have to memorize to be able to learn how to read Chinese. The entire time I was there, I could not read Chinese. And that is a really humbling experience to live in a country and to be illiterate. But the story that I share in Goodbye Orchid is when I went to China, I held myself to incredibly high standards for needing to learn how to speak Mandarin. The first thing I did after I accepted my assignment was I ran out and I bought Rosetta Stone because I figured if I look like this and I show up in Beijing, I better speak Chinese. So I learned as much as I could, as fast as I could, and actually learned quite a bit. My colleagues commented on it because they've seen a lot of expats come into China from Western countries. And they said, wow, you learned so fast and you know so much Chinese. How did you do that? And I said, well, I gave myself a lot of pressure because I figured everyone would expect me to speak Chinese since I look Chinese. They started to laugh at me. My colleagues were bursting out laughing. They were like, you have to be kidding us. We would never mistake you for a Chinese national. We can tell from a mile away that you're not Chinese. I'm like, what? I said, I'm 100% Chinese. Both my parents are from Shanghai. And, I'm ancestrally 100% Chinese. They said, you know what? You might feel that way and maybe that's in your blood, but think about the way you wear your hair. Think about the clothes you choose. And then your mannerisms, the way you carry yourself, the way you speak. It gives it away in less than a heartbeat. We can tell from blocks away that you're not Chinese national, and we would never mistake you for Chinese. So you put all that pressure on yourself for no reason. But that was such a big aha moment for me. And that's why I say too Chinese for America, but too American for China. So whereas I thought when I went to China that this would be the place that would be completely, my home country and where I would just look like everyone else, it wasn't the case. And actually, I'd never felt so American as when I was in China. It's just such an interesting conundrum. And Orchid Page, who is the main character in Goodbye Orchid and in Orchid Blooming, the prequel, she is half Chinese and she yearns to go to China to feel closer to the memory of her mother who passed when she was a child.
Hmm. It's a fascinating story. I was watching a documentary on Rita Moreno, who's from Puerto Rico, and how hard it was for her back in the 50s of trying to make it in acting because they always portrayed her as an island girl that had to speak with almost the way, Mammy had to talk and go. And she said, I'm an American, and I think it's time. That's why we need to read books like yours and we need to watch films like hers, because the more that we understand, I think everybody should have their ancestry done. I think they would be shocked. I think because I think we all think we're something that we may not be. I mean, I'd always been told I had Cherokee blood. I had no Cherokee blood whatsoever. I mean, I don't look like I have any Native American Indian anyway, but that is absolutely fascinating. And so, with this story, okay, so you're writing this story and a lot of it's based upon you. How does your family handle you as an author? That's always curious to me.
Yeah, I have had such great support from my family, which is just lovely, that they're proud that they want to read this book as well as the ones that are coming later this year. And also, some of my family members are some of my best beta readers. And I know that the
Neat.
whole, adage, don't have friends and family read your books because they're only going to tell you the positive things. But no fear, the family members that I'm thinking of are absolutely comfortable telling me what's not working, what needs to be fixed, what they hate. They absolutely are comfortable telling me that. And so they're actually fabulous beta readers, in addition to other beta readers that I have who don't know me personally and are therefore, able to give a very, very fresh perspective. But I'm very lucky, yes, that family is supportive.
Were you a big reader as a child?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, I love the story of how you started reading as a child. The librarians and the teachers in our lives make such a difference, and it opens up a whole world. I remember that moment when I learned how to read. It was actually before I went to kindergarten, when I had that moment where individual letters all of a sudden formed together. And it was almost as if something had been fuzzy and came into focus. And I understood that the letters together formed a word and that I could sound them out and that I could understand their meaning, and everything unlocked from there. I adored the library more than any other place in the world. Other kids would be like, take me to the amusement park, take me to the playground. I was always, take me to the library. That's where I wanted to go. That's where I made friends. I thought I wanted to be a librarian when I grew up. It was just, books were a whole other world. And I lived in when I was in elementary school, the area we lived was not very upscale. And we actually had a bookmobile that would drive into our neighborhood. And the sound of that bookmobile made me almost as excited as the ice cream
I was
truck.
gonna knew you were gonna say the ice cream truck. I love that. I wish we'd had a library truck. Wow, because I had to ride my bike blocks to get to the library. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So, did you read to your boys when they were little?
Oh, so much. I just adored sharing that love of stories and, characters and opening up worlds. And I probably enjoyed it as much, if not, more than them in some ways. And then acting out the different parts, using voices and just making it so fun, which came in very handy when I ended up narrating Goodbye Orchid for the audiobook, you know.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to have to start investing more in those because the readers just aren't working like they used to. I'm getting of that age. But that's great to know that you've got an e-reader for your book, Goodbye Orchid. So, and you did the voice. How wonderful.
It was such an experience. I mean, that was a learning curve as well, which I really loved. And now I have so much, I always had respect absolutely for narrators, but that respect has tripled, because the act of bringing a story to life through your voice as the instrument, it's a performative art. And it is not easy. And to have, each character have their own individual and unique verbal tics and, a sound, and then to keep that consistent throughout an entire novel and to keep somebody's interests, I mean, it's an art. And kudos to all the narrators out there.
That's really important, because I think more and more people are listening, especially as we're now getting out and about in the car, and on the go, at the gym, to books. So we have all these people here, and I know that I'd like to bring them into the conversation. So if you have a burning question about the book, and even if you haven't read it, if there's something you want to ask Carol about the process or anything, now's the time to speak up. So yeah. Yes, Rebecca, go ahead.
Okay, I have so many questions, but I really enjoyed the essay that you shared on the blog post today. Yeah, and you noted that your family in leaving China left under duress and experienced a great deal of trauma. And as we know, many people who have had trauma like that resort to silence. It's safer. And so as a child, you noted that the idea of China was cloaked in silence and mystery and something that was guarded. And so I'm wondering if after you began writing or after you went to China, were you able to fill in some of those blanks from the family past?
Rebecca, what a beautiful question. First of all, so empathetic of you to think about the trauma and how that can lead people to be silent. And that was absolutely my experience, that my parents' generation, and especially my grandparents' generation, did not really speak about China, did not talk about, and for many, many years, China's borders were closed. And so even if they wanted to go back, they wouldn't be able to. They had that fear, and sometimes it wasn't spoken explicitly, but I could feel it implicitly. They had the fear that if they went back to China, that they would not be allowed to leave. They wouldn't be able to get out again. And so for me, it was very healing in a way to have my own personal experience and to go to China and to find that it's a country with people who, all different kinds of people, of course, but including people who are so warm and welcoming and fun and vibrant. And they have, everything you would expect in a big city, tons of restaurants and stores and, culture and, just, it wasn't this, mysterious, scary place where I felt like, oh, once I go there, I'm not going to be able to get out. Although there are some aspects of communist China that are communist. And so it was good to be aware of those things. We lived in an expat community that had people working for the American embassy there, and they were able to fill us in a little bit on the things to be careful about. And so we were, there with utmost respect for the government and the culture, and especially the people, really the people we met, the friends we made. Those are really special memories that I hold dear. Yeah. So thanks so much for asking about that.
Thank you.
Wow. And you work for a chocolate company. How did that go over? I bet that went over really well.
What's so interesting is when I was there, I moved there in 2010 and stayed for 2 years. At that point, only 2/3 of Chinese had even tasted chocolate. A full third of Chinese had never even tasted chocolate. So the upside potential, or what we call penetration, had so much potential, which made it a very interesting business exercise. And my role was to turn around our chocolate gifting business, which had been in decline when I got there, but really through selling the leadership team on a very clear-cut strategy to prioritize gifting as an entry point into the rest of the portfolio. I was able to work with my cross-functional team and turn that around to 30% growth in year 1 and 35% growth in year 2. It was one of the most fun experiences, a lot of hard work, but incredibly rewarding as well.
That's so interesting. You know, when I went on one of my trips to Italy with my Pulpwood queens, we had stopped at their gas stations are very interesting because in the middle, when you walk in, they just have piles of candy boxes all the way almost up to the ceiling of the most unusual things you've ever seen. And when we pulled over our bus, there was a bus of Chinese students and they got out. I have never seen little bitty things, and they had stacks of boxes that they were buying. And I thought they're taking them home, right?
Gifts. Yes, it's a big gifting
Yes.
culture.
It
Um,
is. And we had a Japanese exchange student, and she brought a suitcase full of gifts, just
mhm.
little pins and candies and, little tchotchkes things. And I said, "Where's your clothes?" And she goes, "I didn't bring any." She didn't bring any clothes. So we had to go shopping. So it was like, I thought it's more important for her to bring gifts for people than her to bring clothes. She
Mm.
was so excited about her American blue jeans. It was fun. It was a lot of fun, and bathing suits and things. But we shopped for her in the children's section. That's how
Oh, she was so petite.
she was teeny, teeny, but she was a doll. But anyway, so uh, you had that experience. How hard was it coming back home?
That is a very insightful question because when we went to China, we had cultural training. Mars is incredible in terms of how they look after their expats, and they gave us cultural training. The cultural trainer said to us, when you go to China, there is going to be culture shock because China is a very hierarchical society and the US is very egalitarian. So the two are about as polar opposite as can be. And so you're going to expect that culture shock. What you're not going to expect is that when you come back to the US, that culture shock is actually stronger than the
Yes.
culture shock of going to China. And we're like minds blown. Like, what are you talking about? How could that be? We're keeping our house, we're coming back to the exact same state, town, coming back to my own company. Like, why would there be culture shock? We're coming back home. The thing is, when you have that kind of really big experience living in a different country, living in a different culture, being illiterate, as I had shared before, it changes you. It changes your perspective. It opens your mind. So you come back and you're not the same person. And also, the people who you were friends with see you differently. And that
Really?
change in the dynamics is what makes the reverse culture shock stronger than going away. Isn't
Well,
that unexpected?
well, it is because I was in Rotary International, so we had lots of exchange students live with us. Because I thought at one time I would let my daughter do that. Well, we had a boy from Germany stay with us, and when he came, he spoke no English at all, and
Wow.
it was tough for him. But by the time he left, he was fluent. But his parents told me that when he got back home, he had forgotten German.
Wow.
He
It
was
was,
like, they talked to him, and he was going, he had so immersed himself in English. He was a kicker on the football team. I mean, he was very popular. And it took him a while, but he's fine. He's doing well. He's in
that's an
his
amazing
30s.
story.
He's in his
That's so
30s now,
funny.
but I go, how could you forget your language? But I think that's how you learn a language, though, is to immerse yourself in it.
Mm.
Because I think once you got there, wasn't it a little bit easier than the Rosetta Stone? Or was it?
Yes. Oh, so true. And the problem with Rosetta Stone too is it teaches you very formal phrasing that isn't actually used in everyday vernacular. Even the most simple phrase, a lot of people in the US might learn, the first thing they learn in Chinese is ni hao ma, which literally translates to how are you?
Yeah.
And people think that this is the greeting they should use if they go to China. But actually in China, nobody says ni hao ma. That's like too formal textbook. It sounds like you're, a kid that just learned how to speak Chinese. They have much more like colorful vernacular that they use, like ni zhe yang, hao ma, like it's much more laid back and casual. And so the Rosetta Stone, although it was certainly a good foundation, and I am grateful I did that. You're right. Once I was there and actually hearing people speak and talking to taxi cab drivers and people in the store, then I really learned.
That's so interesting. So, of all the experience that you had over there, do you think it helped lend to the writing of your book? I mean, did it really give you that 2 years? That's
Yeah.
a good while, to immerse yourself in a culture.
Yeah, it's such a meaningful experience to me, and I'm glad it can find its way into the pages of my writing. In Goodbye Orchid, it's a part of the story. Orchid goes to Beijing. It's a 6-week assignment. It's one that she had wanted really badly, and Phoenix Walker helps her get that assignment. But in Orchid Blooming, the prequel, it's really about that whole journey of her, really yearning. The reason that she wants to go to China is because she had witnessed the death of her parents as a child, and she wants to feel closer to her mother, who is from China, who's
Now,
ancestrally Chinese.
when is this book going to be released?
So September 13th is the release
Oh,
date for Orchid Blooming. I can't wait to get you and Mandy copies.
I cannot wait to read it. And it's a prequel. But you also mentioned, you said, are you having another book come out too?
Yes,
Oh my
so I
gosh.
have a sequel.
Oh my gosh. I
I
can't even imagine one, let alone two. Okay. So the next one is Orchid Blooming, and then,
always Orchid.
wow. So the
Yep.
first one, how long did it take you to write it?
Goodbye Orchid, I had started years before. So it came out October of 2020. I had started years before then. And the journey was really interesting because there was part of the journey was just simply writing from my heart, having my feelings pour out onto the page. And then part of it was shaping that work. Part of it was finding an agent. Part of it was finding a publisher, finding editors, all of that. It was such a great learning experience. I think one incredibly pivotal moment in that journey was when I realized that what I thought was just writing for myself, because this is how it started. I was, going through a hard time with one of our twins, and I was writing as a place of solace for myself and allowing my feelings to pour out onto the page. But I also realized I wanted to hone my writing craft. So I joined a writers group. It's called Women Who Write. This has critique groups. You meet in person and you read your work aloud to each other in order to get feedback.
That's cool.
So I remember this so clearly one day sitting around Mary Lee Waldron's kitchen table in Bernardsville, New Jersey, in which all of the authors were listening to me read a chapter from Goodbye Orchid, the chapter in which Phoenix Walker wakes in the hospital after his accident and realizes what's happened to him. I brought that table of writers to tears. And it was in that moment I thought, there is something here. I'm not just writing for me. This has the power to move others. And that's what's been so rewarding for me since Goodbye Orchid has come out, is when readers and reviewers and people like you, Kathy, I almost cried tears of joy when I saw your email when you'd let me know that you'd picked this as a bonus book of the month. It's so rewarding to hear that, on the one hand, people who have not been through medical trauma feel that Goodbye Orchid deepens their empathy, shines a light on disability awareness in a way that they haven't seen before. And then on the other hand, people who have been through medical trauma tell me they see themselves reflected on the pages of Goodbye Orchid. And both of those perspectives are just incredibly heartwarming for me.
And you're giving part of the proceeds of the profits of this book to a charity. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the story is inspired by combat wounded veterans, and therefore a portion of the proceeds are going to USA Cares, which looks after military veterans and their families. What I've learned from speaking with the CEO of USA Cares is a lot of times military veterans, I mean, they're putting their lives on the line, right, fighting for the freedom of our country, and that in and of itself is such an incredible gift. But then on top of that, the challenges they face when they come back home after they've deployed are really tough challenges. Things like, not being able to find a job because companies might not realize that their skill set is transferable. Companies might say, "Oh, well, your experience is in the military. How does that translate?" And I think we could, part of what USA Cares talks about is educating companies to realize that leadership skills, problem solving skills, those are completely transferable.
I think today's generation, they've definitely noticed that because I have a lot of family members in the military. And when my youngest nephew got out, he was a big machinery repairman. And he instantly got hired by one of the big machine companies in Wichita. And, he's doing great. They trained him while he was in the military. And so, my cousin who was a pilot with Delta, he started out in the Air Force, as a pilot. So, I, I think they're recognizing now, let's teach them the skills so that if they do leave, that they'll be productive in society. So good for you. That's wonderful. My dad was a 2-time Korean War veteran, which was, I could write a whole book about his experience. But he came back with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And, that's another whole topic, but you're addressing things that people don't know about. And the more we read, the more we learn. The more we learn, the more empathy, kindness. So you're a perfect example of a Pulpwood Queen book club selection. And I am really looking forward to the next one. So anybody else who wants to jump in and ask some questions? Barbara, do you have anything? Your hair's so cute. Tell us anything you want to ask.
Hi, I just want to say, Carol, hi.
Hi.
It's so nice to see you. And we spoke a long time ago, as you remember, but I'm telling the rest of these wonderful women about the process. My book had been coming out, and she was just so generous. This total stranger was so generous with her wisdom and her experience and things that she went through, and she was really like a roadmap for me in many ways. So I just wanted to share that with you. And because of COVID, I live in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. You live down in New Jersey. I haven't been able to get out to see you in person. So I thought this was the next best thing.
Perfect.
So I loved your book.
More people discover this. That's wonderful, Barbara. I'm glad you shared that story, because to me, I've been in this cabin in the woods for over 2 years, and I'm a people person. So I do like 5 Zooms a week. I look so forward to them because it's the only conversation I have other than talking to my cat. So it's really terrific and good for you. We have a lot of groups within our group. We have a writers club where our authors mentor to newbies and seasoned professionals. And last week, Judith Tittleman from Los Angeles, who teaches at the California Institute for the Arts, gave a program on time management. And I thought, it was I've never heard anything like this. She works with artists. I'm telling you, you guys, go to my YouTube channel and watch it. We can all learn from each other. Carol, you'll have to come forward and maybe be one of our writers club because everybody has something to give. And the more we share, the better we all get. And the more we help each other, the more we help ourselves. So I love that story, Barbara. A great testimony.
Yeah, just such generosity, and I really find that writers help writers, and especially women helping women. I find that we sort of like, we're this sisterhood in a way, and we all have books coming out or writing books or interested in books and storytelling and whatnot. And, I think that we have an open heart, and Carol was just stellar in that way. And of course I bought her book and I loved it. And many of my friends bought her book.
I just want to frame the cover because I love Orchid. It's beautiful. And Eileen's done a workshop for us, and she's got her Freedom Lessons book. And then Rebecca has her wonderful book you're coming up in the queue. You'll be coming up soon, so you'll be able to talk too. But we're all sharing each other's lives through the sharing of our stories. And I don't think anybody can get a really true, like I think of it like a camera. When you get the author into the story, it comes into full focus, because some of the things that we might overlook was really important to them. And there's always one person that asks a question, well, what did you mean by that? And they go, I don't even remember writing that. And it's so obscure, but for them it stood out, and they go, did I really? What page was that on? It just cracks me up. So thank you for sharing that. And it's always great to hear everybody's perspectives. Did you have some more questions, Rebecca?
I do, but I know Eileen does.
Oh, Eileen, well, go ahead, Eileen, and we'll come back to you.
We have two Jersey girls here, they
Yeah,
just
she's in Jersey too. We have a lot of
I was a Jersey girl. I used to be in Jersey.
We have a lot. We have a chapter in Kim Harwanko has a chapter of Pulpwood Queens, and she lives in, where does she live?
Chester.
Is it
Chester.
Chester? Yeah, she's darling. She's darling.
Yeah.
I'm really close to Chester. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
You need to find her on Facebook, Kim Harwanko. She and her book club members wrote a book about a book club. It is the coolest thing ever. And they got on CNN. It's the craziest thing, their story. But
So when you have your next in-person Pulpwood Queens,
yes,
all Jersey girls can come together.
listen, tomorrow, you guys, we're getting the word on the venue to send out the press release. So if you aren't excited, you should be, because this is our first live convention since 2020. And I will tell you this, it's going to be on the beach.
Whoops, you froze.
Sounds.
I think
Oh,
you said
we lost
froze.
Kathy for a second. Yes.
Well,
On
I
the
guess I
beach.
froze because I'm still in shock about going to the beach. We're calling
beach?
it, our theme this year is Over the Moon, because we are literally over the moon about how all this is working out. And until we get the contract signed and everything, but we think tomorrow will be the announcement. So hang on tight.
Question. I have so many questions, Carol. As you spoke, there's just so much connection that we have. You named Bernardsville and the Women Who Write group. I've been part of that, not as active because I'm in a different writers group out of Summit. And it's just, but the thing that struck me was when I have a very good friend, and I have to get her your book, that she's married to a Chinese man. And when she went back to China with her family for a visit, I'm not sure, I think her husband had a conference and they all went. It was for a short trip. And her children, who are half Chinese, were feeling so comfortable because they looked at the policeman and he was Chinese, and they looked at the everyone that they saw. Oh, look, there's a Chinese policeman, there's a Chinese doorman, there's a Chinese waitress, server, whatever. It was like a Chinese teacher. Because they were feeling so, obviously they're half American, they're born, really they're here, they've always lived here, but they've never quite felt like they belonged. And I think she'd really appreciate your book, and her daughters would really like to read it because they're going through their own adjustments as they live through this country can be tough. And the thing, I don't know, I have questions, I've been trying to write them down. The culture shock piece that you mentioned, going from China back to New Jersey made me think about, but it made me think about my book is based on a year that I spent in Louisiana. So in the same country, and the culture shock that I had going from New Jersey to a very small town in Louisiana, very rural town, and then going home, and how people didn't understand me. Like, I changed that year. There were so many things that it really opened my eyes to who I was, what I wanted to be. And when I came home, then that's what I tried to do. And that
Yeah.
was
You were
60
experiencing culture shock within your own country, which
Yes.
absolutely can be the case. There's
Yeah.
actually a phrase called third culture kids that was discussed quite a bit when we were in China, because the International School of Beijing, where my twins went, had 80 different countries represented. So each of those students had a foot in China, but also a foot in their home country, whether it be South Africa or somewhere in Europe or in, North or South America. And so they became these third culture kids where the melding of those different cultures was so interesting. And I love, Eileen, you just brought up, also as you were sharing all these things we have in common, you talked about Women Who Write. It's a great organization. Their conference is coming up this Saturday. And in fact,
Right.
I'm speaking at the conference about how to get media ready, how to prep for podcasts, and how to, get ready to be interviewed. I do love, I think Barbara said it so beautifully that the writers community is incredibly giving, that we support each other. And this is why I speak at conferences, because it's my way of helping to give back, to translate my 20 plus years of marketing and strategy experience for authors, to help them understand, how they can approach marketing. And so I speak about topics from author brand. When you say personal brand, what does that mean? I talk about visual identity. I talk about marketing mindset. I talk about writing millennial characters if you're not a millennial yourself. And I talk about how to think about marketing strategies before the tactics. And the visual identity piece, I think, is interesting because, Kathy, you had mentioned you really love the cover of Goodbye Orchid. Goodbye Orchid has won 16 literary and design awards, including for the cover design. The shattered orchids on the front of Goodbye Orchid represent the physical and emotional shattering of Phoenix and Orchid, who go through a lot in the story. But also it's won design awards for the interior. And I don't know, Kathy, if I'd ever mentioned to you the hidden Easter egg design detail that's inside of Goodbye Orchid. But those shattered orchids that are on the front cover, if you flip through the pages and look in the bottom right corner, every page has an image of orchids, and the orchids will appear to shatter until you get to the darkest point of the story. Then they visually come back together for the emotionally satisfying ending. So it's like a flip book feature inside the book itself.
It sure is. I never caught that.
How did you come up with that?
Hey, that's brilliant.
Who designed that?
Yeah, so Kohler Books was so wonderful to work with on the launch of Goodbye Orchid, and their designers were wonderful. I thank Kelly Emery, I thank John Kohler, I thank Kelly Emery, who's the book cover designer, for their collaboration and for being very open to my ideas. I think sometimes I hear authors having a hard time working with their publishers on covers, and I had a very positive experience.
And I really love the fact that you have book club discussion questions in the back. Did you write these?
I did. And I have to say, it is so fun to talk with book clubs about Goodbye Orchid because they get all the little details that they might not get just by reading it. So, for instance, there's a meaning behind each of the names of the characters. And so Phoenix, I think, is probably the more obvious name and what it means because of the character arc he goes through, the fact that he suffers a life-changing accident, which mirrors what combat wounded veterans go through. And so Phoenix, it comes from mythology, the fact that phoenixes can rise from ashes. And so I say rising from ashes is hard, but giving up the one you love is harder. Because Phoenix, when he wakes in the hospital, realizes what's happened to himself, is thinking about the woman he loves, Orchid Page. But he also remembers that she was traumatized by witnessing the death of her parents as a child, and therefore is triggered by images of trauma, which he himself has become. And so he feels he's faced with the hardest decision of his life, whether to love her, he may need to leave her without explaining why. And Susan Cushman, who blurbed the book, said that it's like a modern day affair to remember. And that incredibly heart-wrenching dilemma, when you love somebody so much, but you feel that your being with them is actually going to make things worse for them. And then the self-sacrifice in leaving because you think that's better for the person.
Wow.
This is so great. I'm going to be playing with this all night. That is so fabulous, but it is absolutely gorgeous. So well deserved.
I
Yeah.
have another question about your kitchen table conversation that brought everyone to tears. At what point were you in the writing? Were you almost finished? Did they know the whole story? Were they, there's just so many things that you're doing with this book and teaching people about culture, about, you know, the trauma of the veterans. And so what was it that really got to them? Do you?
Yeah, you know, so I was still in first draft mode when we were reading aloud, and so they were kind of hearing my writing live as I was, you know, crafting the story. And so the particular chapter that really brought them to tears was, you know, right in chapter 1 of Goodbye Orchid, Phoenix is taking Orchid to the airport. She's going away for the 6-week business trip to China. And the opening line of the book is Phoenix never believed today was goodbye because he thinks he's going to see her again in 6 weeks. But in the intervening time, and actually right in chapter 1, a really tragic accident befalls him that changes him forever. And it's that chapter when he wakes in the hospital and sees what he's lost. And I'm trying to not give away too many spoilers in case you haven't read it and
Gotta
want
read
to.
it. Gotta read it.
When he sees what's happened to himself and realizes that he has been changed forever, his life will never be the same again, which is what combat wounded veterans experience, you know, in these incredibly difficult experiences they have when they're blown up by improvised explosive devices, IEDs, etc. And so it was that chapter when he wakes and sees what's happened to himself, his twin brother is by his side and doesn't know how to console him. That's a big part of the story too. It's not just the arc of Phoenix and how he recovers and the arc of Orchid and how she, you know, rises to the occasion, but also the twin brother Caleb has a lot of growing to do to be the best brother he can, to be at Phoenix's side throughout this whole ordeal. Yeah, so all of that is just, you know, I think that's what really moved those authors, to answer your question, Eileen.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, as you continued on with your story, and how much of your culture and the Chinese culture and is what also impacted them in interested them in continuing to support you with this book. Or they must be thrilled. I mean, I just, you know, my writing group, when, you know, when you're in a writing group and you get published, like everyone is celebrating, right?
Yeah, and I thank them all in my acknowledgments because they really deserve it for, you know, helping, and they continue to shape my work, which is incredible. You know, you asked about the China piece, so that is touched upon lightly in Goodbye Orchid, but in the sequel, that is going to be even a bigger part. And earlier, Kathy, you were talking about your dad's service. Thank you so much for your dad's service, and you talked about his PTSD. So each of the books has a you know, and it's not hit you over the head kind of thing, but it has a social justice theme to each of the books. The prequel, Orchid Blooming, actually shines a light on PTSD because Orchid, when as a child, she witnesses the death of her parents, and the, you know, that trauma really stays with her into adulthood, and how she, you know, finds ways to heal from that is really the journey for Orchid in Orchid Blooming. And then in the sequel, in Always Orchid, that one of the characters that was pivotal at the beginning of Goodbye Orchid, because the accident that Phoenix has down in the subway station is precipitated by a homeless man who doesn't mean to do Phoenix harm, but ends up causing Phoenix's accident. That homeless man will come back in Always Orchid, and it gives, therefore, the book has a platform by which to talk about temporary, you know, temporarily unhoused or homeless, and how you can give hope to how you can rise from that as well.
That's great. That's really,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
if I can ask, I want to know what motivated you. I mean, you have a very successful career at Mars, and now I'm going to be a writer. So, I mean, what motivated you to start writing, and kind of to go back to the time management thing? How do you balance these two different paths?
Yeah, those are great questions. I mean, the motivation, it initially came from going through a hard time myself, and then just remembering I always wanted to write. Had actually, when I was 17 years old and going to college, I told my traditional Chinese family that I was going to be an English major. And I had that, yes, exactly, Kathy, you're so right. You can guess where this was going.
I know.
They had
Doctor?
they had the whole sit down talk with me. And again, this is so funny, like it's going to sound so stereotypical to you, but they said to me, you're really good at math and science, so why don't you at least try math or science or engineering for a year? That was the whole, the bargain that we struck. And then when I showed up as a freshman engineering major, what happened was, at college, this is also hysterical, they put all the engineering freshmen together into this enormous hall, and they give you them the very cliche talk. Look to your left, look to your right. In 4 years, only one of you is going to be left, because the rest of you are going to fail out. You're not going to make it. You're going to flunk out. I got so mad over that talk. I'm like, I'm not going to fail out. I can make it as an engineer. So 4 years later, I walked down the graduation aisle with my industrial engineering degree, which started my whole career at Mars in digital, then marketing. I got my MBA, went into marketing and strategy. But that's a long way to say, that actually English and the love of literature, the love of story has been a part of me from, the start. And so in some ways it feels so right for me to come full circle and now be a published author, because it had been, in my heart for so long, and have always loved reading, and have, penned stories, and have always journaled or written in some ways. But this was the first time I really focused on creating a novel. And so that's how it came about. Really, it came during a time that was difficult. Started writing for myself, and then realized through the writers group that the book had a place in the world and could do good in the world. And in fact, when John Kohler signed the contract with me, he said, the reason I'm signing with you is because I believe this story can do good in the world. And I love that, because I thought he gets what I'm trying to do. And then your second question is around time management. And I would say, that's a multifaceted answer. I would probably attribute it to two main things. One, I give a lot of credit to my husband, and Goodbye Orchid is dedicated to my humorous husband, my humorous hubby, because
Vegetarian.
yes, left-handed vegetarian. He he just, makes sure the house runs smoothly, the kids are okay, does the grocery shopping, the dishes, the laundry, so that I have time to pursue these things that I absolutely love, which is just, can't thank him enough for that gift to allow me to try to be the best person I can. And then secondly, I would say that I have found when I really love something and am passionate about it, it's not a sacrifice. It's not like I'm giving up time. It actually gives me more energy, and it makes me want to do it more. And so this is how I find that I can, I love Mars and love my career there. I love my writing and speaking. And then I also love giving back in the community. So this is why I serve on boards of directors. I just finished a 6-year term for a special needs school, being on their board. And I'm next seeking a corporate board position, and actually have just been accepted into Yale's Women on Boards program to pursue that.
Wow,
Congratulations.
That's great. Congratulations.
Very
I
cool.
love this. Oh, everybody's missing out tonight. They're going to have to watch this on our YouTube channel. So anyway, every time we have one of these, I learn so much I thought I knew. And we really don't know unless we have the conversation. So yeah, tell us another story, it's great. So you're going to have 2 books come out this year?
So, it's interesting because I'm having some thinking about the timing of the sequel. So I've not announced a release date. The release date for Orchid Blooming is September 13th. The release date for the sequel, I think, is a little bit up in the air. And yeah, once I know it, I'll definitely let you know, and can't wait to get both those books in your and Mandy's hands.
I think it's a miraculous that you can do that. But at the same time, it sets a pattern for you these people that churn out 2 and 3 books a year, I can't even imagine what their lives must be like. I think you get, you know, hold it if you can. I've been holding a book, you know, I'm working on because of COVID. I've seen how hard it's been for my authors. You know, they call me, help. I, you know, cannot. That's why Mandy created the magazine, because our magazine's over 100,300, or it's 300 and some readership now. And that's just a little over a year. Can you believe that? And that is featuring our author members. You don't even have to be a book club selection, but if you're an author member, you can advertise. It's so inexpensive in our magazine, and it's going around the world. So we're really excited about it. And I put up today a special contest, just so everybody will know. You know, if you're a member already, it doesn't work. But if you are not a member, have not joined the book club, or you have not joined the YouTube channel, every time you do one of those things, I'm going to enter you into it for a drawing to win a package to this coming Girlfriend Weekend.
Wow.
So, because I don't want anybody to miss it. It's going to be amazing. And authors and readers both can just look at my post, but I'll be posting it again and put it up on the website. But the reason why everybody's going to be so excited about it is when you have this event in person, and I actually get to see Carol or Eileen or Rebecca or Barbara, you know, it creates a bond. I don't know. I mean, I have girls that have been coming for over 20 years, and they have just been pestering the heck out of me. When are we going to have a live event? So we wanted to wait until it was safe. And I think we've got it figured out how to make it, you know, safe for everyone. And I think by January, it'll be fine. So I hope everybody will come, because all our 2022 authors will be recognized, because you're going to be up for Books of the Year at our awards ceremony. We're going to be announcing our 2023 picks. So everybody wants to be there for that. And then we have lots of interaction things that we're going to be doing, some really unique things that we've never done before. We're having an all white hairball where you dress all in white, because we're over the moon and we're going to be dancing by the light of the moon. And everybody goes, oh, I have to buy a white outfit. And I said,
I thought you were celebrating white hair. No.
well,
I love your hair.
You can do that too. My lavender is slowly dissipating. I've got to, but no, we're doing an all white ball because we just thought that would be hilarious. But I had a group of girls come one year, and they had fashioned with bed sheets. They all came as Glinda from the Wizard of Oz weekend, because we didn't want everybody all coming as the same thing. We told every girl group to pick a color, and they chose white. So they all came as white Glindas, and they made bed sheet dresses, and they took clear trash cans upside down and made the crowns and put lights in them.
Oh my God.
So creative.
And they had a mojito machine on their table, and it's all lit up. It's up on my website. You can see it. It was pretty amazing. It's those crazy Tyler roses that from Tyler, Texas, that did that. But use your imagination. I mean, you know, there are white orchids.
Absolutely. There are gorgeous white orchids.
In fact, in my bathroom, I have a lampshade made out of orchids. I have had it since my very first Girlfriend Weekend. I had a vendor came that brought it, and I said, is that a lampshade made out of orchids? And she goes, yeah. I go, I have to have it. And I've had it for, well, I think 22 years. Yeah.
So there's actually a reason that orchid is named orchid. There's
Yes.
meaning to it, which is that orchids have a reputation for being quite delicate, which
Yeah.
is what, you know, and I always worry when people give me orchids as gifts that I'm going to kill them. But this is, you know, the fallacy that Phoenix has about Orchid. He's trying to protect her from the accident that befalls him, because he believes that she's sensitive to images of trauma, and, you know, that she's delicate. But actually, if you talk to an orchidologist, they say orchids in the wild are quite resilient and hardy. And this is how Orchid rises to the occasion and is resilient and hardy in the end. And so this is why Orchid is named Orchid. I also want to say, while we have Barbara here, and it's so exciting to have her here, that her book just won a Nautilus Award, which is such an honor.
Congratulations.
I'm so happy to see that.
Thank you
What's the
so
name of your
much.
book?
Thank you. The Dream Catcher Codes.
The Dream. I wonder if I've seen that. I haven't seen it. I'll have to check it out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So that was very sweet of you. Yes, it did. And it came out last summer, and it's young adult fantasy. And it's a lot of girl power meets the environment, and it's important and timely and diverse characters and sisterhood and camaraderie and magic and mysticism. And I don't know how this downloaded, but it did. It just sort of came right out, and it's a very it's a beautiful story about love. It's really my love letter to Mother Earth and all of her daughters.
Oh, well, you're speaking to me
Yeah.
because I'm a big nature girl, and I love
Yeah, this
stories
is-
that connect us to the magic, mysticalism, and
That's this book, and it's so funny because Carol, I mean, I also came from the branding world. I was a creative director in New York, writing commercials.
really.
And then I became a documentary filmmaker because, like Carol, I mean, we find these passions, these things that we really love. And then I lost funding on the film, and this beautiful story just bubbled up, and it was a calling. And so I had to write it. It's what happens to us, right? It just
We
bubbles
all
up.
wear many hats, sometimes even crowns of orchids.
There you
You
go.
know, I
I
really
love
like
that.
this. I think I'm gonna have to save this for girlfriend weekend because it is. I'll have to do a little sewing, but I'll make it work. But anyway, yeah, I'm really excited about hearing more. We have a club called the Cool Cat Club for young adult and up, because and we like to feature. We have a lot of authors who write in that genre, like David Valdez, and so we decided to create more of a venue so they could share their stories. And we even do a little one now. I have Mama Cat's book club where I have authors and illustrators come on and storytell. So we do a lot of things. Check out our calendar of events, and we're just so happy. I am so looking forward to tomorrow's blog. I cannot hardly wait to see what you're going to have. And how do you stay so thin working with Mars? That's what I want to know.
I have this like really funny diet where I eat super healthy. I love my vegetables. I love my fruit. I had salmon for dinner, but then I don't hold back. If I want treats, I let myself have treats. And at Mars, actually in the office, they have vending machines where every slot is free. So if you, and then if you can't choose between the Twix and the Starburst and the Skittles and the peanut butter M&Ms and all of the things in there, right next to the vending machine is a freezer full of Mars ice cream. And that after lunch, I walked by it today and I'm like, oh, M&M's ice cream sandwiches, Snickers ice cream cones, Dove ice cream bars, like Kind ice cream.
Dove, right?
Yeah, I've worked on Dove. It's an amazing, beautiful brand. Yeah.
It really is.
I worked on it too.
Oh,
Love it. I love it. Well, now explains what your silent auction item. I was going, well, this is interesting. All these different kinds of chocolate bars. And I didn't get the connection, but I learned that some time back. I thought that was very clever that you had all the wonderful chocolates in your silent auction item. So is there anything that you want to share with the group that hasn't been mentioned that you feel important?
I did get very happy news yesterday, which is that we've been waiting for cats now since last August or September. And we found out that we are going to be parents to 2 kittens that are arriving at the end of next week.
And there's something special about those kittens, right?
Well, two things. One, they're two brothers from the same litter, so they're twins, and I'm a mom of twins. So this is like
I
another
love
set
that.
of twins coming to our household. And then also they're hypoallergenic. I'm allergic to cats, and Siberian cats are hypoallergenic. They have low
I did
levels.
not know that.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're beautiful.
The Siberian cats are hypo. Oh, I'm gonna have to tell. My grandson has a cat and he's allergic to
Yeah.
Penelope. And so, but they can't get rid of Penelope because Penelope's part of the family, you know. So, but he's deals, they deal with it. They vacuum a lot. But anyway, how cool is that? And I saw the pictures. They're just adorable.
It's going to be so much fun. I'm not sure how much sleep we're going to get though.
No, when I got Figments was running around here trying to jump in my lap. It's a rescue cat. Oh my gosh. It just headbutts you all the time. Hi, James.
Hello there.
Hey, glad you joined us. We've been talking here to Carol on her wonderful book, Goodbye Orchid, and it's been fascinating. So you can always catch it on when I download it onto our Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel. But glad to have you here. And this is a good group, you guys. Thank you for all coming tonight. And I know you're working every day, right? Correct? Oh my
It's
God.
true. Yeah.
What time do you go to work in the morning?
Today, my meeting started at 8 a.m., so I had to leave the house by 7. Yeah. And then my meetings went till 5. And then I got ready for this.
Well, yeah, you've got it going. So we appreciate you being here, Carol, and we appreciate your
Amazing.
blogs.
Yeah.
We're getting to know more about you. So when we have our girlfriend weekend, we'll all get to see each other. I cannot hardly wait. So stay tuned tomorrow for the big news. I just talked to Mandy, and Mandy apologized. She was not here tonight. I made her stay home because she wasn't feeling well. So she's been running ragged herself with all the things that she does. So I go, take it easy. I don't want to kill you, honey.
She's amazing.
She is really a life blessing to me because everything that she's taken on board, she's championed. So you cannot thank her enough. Check out readingnationmagazine.com and let her know how much you appreciate her because she's a volunteer. I gave her the title of executive director, but there's no pay. So, she volunteers, and her and Robert Gwaltney and Betty Hunt Koval and Ruthie Landis is going to be joining me on Book and Film Club now. So I've got all these wonderful volunteers, and just you guys coming to the meetings means the world to me. So thank you so much. And I just want you to have a wonderful evening with your husband and your family. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow on the Pulpwood Queen Presents Her Picks. Great choice, you guys. And James, you missed this, but in the corner of her book, there's a little drawing of an orchid. And if you flip through it, something amazing happens. I never knew this, and I've read this book twice. So it's so cool. Very, very.
Are we over now?
Yes, we're over. We started at 7. We start at 7. But
okay.
see, you're on, he's in
Pacific
Washington.
time. Yeah.
You're on Pacific time. So I'm sorry, but it'll
well,
be
congratulations, Carol.
Thanks so much, James. Really appreciate you joining for a little
Barbara. Bit. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This is so nice. What a nice conversation.
I love you all.
Oh. Great conversation.
I also have on my brand new class ring. My class ring from the University of Texas, and I specifically got it for my ring finger. But I saved up for 5 years to get this ring. And, I graduated magna cum laude after 43 years of 7 colleges. My God, I'm wearing the ring. So
congratulations.
Continue to be a lifelong learner. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Carol.
It's
bye.
Bye, Carol. Take care.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.